Sparrow, I'm the membership director here at the Chamber of Commerce, and just inviting you to one of our industry roundtables. We're trying to get some good information to our industries that we believe will be a help to them. Again, I do thank the Development Authority for taking care of the food as well and partnering with us on these roundtables. And this time I'm going to let Josh Finn come up and speak a little bit to you from the Development Authority. Many of you probably already know Josh. Thank you again, Josh.
Thank you, Mary. Good afternoon, everybody. We're glad to have you today on behalf of Henry County Development Authority. I know we have a lot of our established industries in the room, and we're looking forward to continuing our partnership with y'all going into 2020, and also with our small business allies that are members of the Chamber. We're always glad to have you, as I'm a Chamber board member, so we're excited about this partnership. Yeah, I know workforce is a very challenging issue, and I think today's topic is very relevant for exciting opportunities coming forward. So I hope you take the information that's given today with you, and if we can ever assist y'all, definitely let us know. A few other things, well, I've got some of my established industries here, just want to make you aware of. I'll be sending out an email to you later this week. We got some new things going on this year in 2022 that we want to get going. One of those is our Made in Henry video series. This is something that we wanted to do for a very long time to get out there. And we are looking for a few of our established industries. If you're interested, what this is we're going to produce videos talking about your company, what the jobs are, what the skill sets needed are, not just for rank and file, but management, white collar, blue collar types of opportunities, and help educate our community about the companies that we have here. We feel that this is very important. As we have a lot of new citizens moving into Henry County, they think we're part of Atlanta when they move here, right? We all do. That's where we think the jobs are. Y'all provide great jobs here, and we got to help get the word out the door. So this is something that we have funded. There'll be some more details coming out to you in an email. If you're interested in being part of it, it doesn't take long. We've contracted with a fellow chamber member that's based here in Henry County to do that video production. We'll get with you and we will get that out very quickly based on your timeline. But we are looking for some volunteers. We'll also be offering some additional programming that we'll partner with the chamber with. I also want to introduce Amanda Fields of the Georgia Department of Economic Development. She's currently covering our region for the state out of Region 4, even though we're in Region 3. So if you have any state needs, definitely let me know or Amanda know. We'll be glad to get you connected there. So hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you for joining us today. And thank y'all, as always, for choosing Henry. We're glad to have you. Gary.
All right, and also, I know a lot of y'all are already members of the Chamber. If you're not, you want some more information, there's some information packets on the back. Or even if you are a member and don't really know all the benefits that we have that you can take care of, grab one of those. Feel free to send me an email. Y'all should all have my email by now. And I'll be glad to go over some of that with you and just give you some more information about that. So this time I'm going to bring up our chair-elect, Steve Nail. He's going to introduce our speaker this morning because he knows him a little better than I do, I think. So come on, Steve.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you all for being here today. Josh, special thanks to you. We appreciate your guys' partnership with the Chamber. And we see the need. It's hard to get good help nowadays. And so I reached out to Michael and I said, what does the state have they can offer? So that is going to be his program today. It's basically to show you some options that are available to businesses as far as retaining employees, hiring employees, which I know that's across the board a hard thing to do nowadays. So Michael and I are brothers. I've seen him after he graduated high school. He got his criminal justice degree. And from there, he started out as a probation officer in Jonesboro, Georgia. And from there, quickly moved his way up to intensive probation to now he is the Commissioner of Community Supervision that was put together by former Governor Deal. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Michael Wayne Nail. Thank you, guys.
do appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'll just be brief because I brought smart folks with me who's going to do the presentation and answer all the questions, because they're like, Michael, they're going to call us anyway. And I go, yeah, you got a good point there. I just want to tell you, just to echo a little bit about my career, and not from a bolstering standpoint, but everybody wants to know, this guy really know what the hell he's talking about, right? You got to have what they call street cred, okay? Well, he's right. I started in 1989 as a state probation officer, and through that career, I eventually became over the state probation system, and then was with Georgia Department of Corrections, and I was their chief operating officer, and I was over probation, prison, and special operations. And then in 2010, Governor Perdue then wanted to see some changes at the State Board of Pardons and Paroles. I went there as the executive director of the State Board of Pardons and Paroles, served in that capacity for 5 years, and then, this is where we come into play. In 2015, the legislature created our agency, Department of Community Supervision. Took the supervision functions from parole and probation and made it our agency, because really we were doing the same thing with the same people. It just made good sense. And at that time, Governor Deal appointed me to start the agency, and I was very fortunate that Governor Kemp has reappointed me. So I share that with you. I've been around the block a time or two. And I go out and I talk to our 1,500 plus officers in the field, and I talk about challenges. We talk with our counselors. What are you up against? They go, man, if we can just give them jobs, just give them jobs. I want to share something with you in the education about the system, but it does put it in perspective. Our agency alone supervises and works with over 200,000 adults that are under felony supervision. Okay? In the state alone, to include misdemeanors, we have nearly 500,000 people under supervision. Okay? 7 years ago, that was 1 in 13. Throw that out, people start counting off, right? 1 in 13. We've done better. We've not done well enough. We're now 1 in 18. What about you? That's nothing to get a t-shirt to brag about. Okay? We have the highest number of individuals under supervision in the nation. In the nation. I will be the first to tell you it is real easy to get tangled up in the criminal justice system. Real easy. It is extremely difficult to get untangled from that system. You've got a need. You need good folks that can help you do the work that you're intended to do. We have a need. One of the biggest keys to these individuals not re-engaging in criminal behavior is employment. It's employment. There are good folks out there. You know, I'll just be candid with you. There go I, but for the grace of God, I could have been one of those people at any given time. And what we find with these individuals, they're smart, they're talented, they have drive, they have desire. You know what they don't have? They don't have a chance. They're not given a chance. So what I'd like for you to do for this presentation, block out serial rapists, block out murderers, block out child molesters. That's not who we're talking about. We're talking about not the folks that we're truly afraid of. We're talking about people that pissed us off as a system. We're mad at them. But they have qualities that are redeemable, and they prove that they have those qualities. All they're wanting is a chance. That's all they're wanting is a chance. So I hope this information is helpful. I will tell you by way of introduction, Michelle Stanley is here, much like me. She has well over 28 years in the criminal justice system with juvenile. We were blessed when our agency started to go and steal her away from the juvenile justice. I'm not above that at all when I see good talent. And she has done a wonderful job, her and her entire team. I see some heads nodding that may know Michelle. Get an amen? Yeah. So she's here to share some information along with Renee, and I'll let her introduce Renee. We'll stay along after for as long as you need, and we'll always be available to answer any questions for you. So Michelle Stanley, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And hopefully I can live up to that introduction. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I may move, and me and the mic doesn't always work well together because I'm going to end up dropping it. I'm not going to talk in it, so I just rather leave it here, so you all let me know if you can't hear me okay. But good morning again. On behalf of the CEO Henny here, Executive Director Finn, Mr. Nail, thank you all for the invite, for allowing us to share with you all. As mentioned, I'm Michelle Stanley, but I serve as the Director of Reentry Services. And I'm going to share a little bit of an overview of what that means to you all, as well as it's an honor just to be here to present to you all today. So thank you again for having us. We provided you all with a packet of information. What you will find in your folders is a copy of this presentation. Also, I've put a business card in there for a point of contact for you. Is our Senior Community Coordinator that covers this area, Carolyn Johnson. Myself, as well as Ms. Sneed, have business cards that we will leave as well. And we gave you some branding material. We wanted to make sure that we left you with some information. Oftentimes when someone is presenting to you, you're listening, but it's after you leave that you think about things. So if you have any questions, information is there, as well as we're going to share it with you electronically. Okay? Excuse me. This is why I would not eat. So, your note from our table of contents, a few main points that I want to share with you. I want to give you a brief overview of reentry services, as well as I want to talk with you about the importance of employment for our population, as well as some barriers they face. And then I want to wrap it up, of course, with some benefits to you as employers and a few success stories and partnerships that we've been able to have. My division is made up of roughly 30 team members, and we cover 17 of the judicial circuits here in Georgia, about 42 counties. And with that, we're providing capacity of resources that are available in our community that we link individuals with to prop them and support them while under supervision. That could be employment, housing, access to mental health, physical health, whatever they need, food, clothing. That's what we're responsible for doing, is building a capacity to support them. I think it's important to share that so that you know as you get an individual for employment, you're not just getting that individual with nothing. They are supported. We also cover the entire state for housing needs. We have 2 housing programs that we oversee, the Reentry Partnership Housing, which is a program that we cover costs for them to remain for some respite housing for up to 90 days. Then we also have a SOAR directory, which is a directory comprised of individuals that have pledged and they're willing to work and house our individuals, and they cover their own costs, and they can stay there for as long as needed. As I kind of share information with you, you'll understand why I talk about housing and employment and why it's important to support our individuals. However, the ability for us to partner effectively and front load resources with those individuals, it has to be through collaboration both externally and internally with partners such as yourself. So this is our mission and vision statement. In short, we're going to make sure that we work with individuals to make sure they're law-abiding citizens, the public is safe, and they have what they need to be successful with transitioning home. We'll talk a lot about individuals transitioning back, but as Commissioner Neal mentioned, in that 200,000 population that we serve every day, the bulk of that population is already in the community under probation supervision. It's a small portion that's transitioning from the prison system. So I like to make that clear as well so that you know the context of the population you're working with, but we don't separate it. We look at everybody that we're providing supervision to that's under community supervision. It's just that, they're under community supervision. So, however, the ability to partner effectively requires us to build capacity. In fact, research has shown early access to employment, housing, health care, and other social services are key components of successful reentry and individuals reintegrating back in their community. This slide basically shows that we have roughly 550 employers that we're currently already working with in those 7 judicial circuits that I mentioned in those 42 counties. Of that, we've been successful with linking 8,500 individuals to employment. That could be direct employment or employment services. We know everyone is not ready just to go directly to work. So when we recognize that, we ensure we partner them with an employment service provider so that we get them ready for employment. So we've been successful in doing that over the last couple of years. We had an opportunity early on by way of Steve Nell to meet Tricia Colpetzer. Not sure if Tricia's here today. Is she here? So we started some initial conversation with her as it relates to employment opportunities in Henry County. That conversation has been ongoing, and I'm sure it had a lot to do with what got us here today. So thank you, Tricia, for that and any work that you did to make that happen. Just to give you a little context about Henry County, Henry County is the Flint Judicial Circuit. We're currently providing supervision to a little over 2,600 individuals here in Henry County. Of that, 811 are already employed. So we've gotten that set of the population taken care of. 998 of those individuals have been exempt from employment for various reasons. But we have 840 individuals that are unemployed, but they are employable. So that's what we have, that's the population we're talking about for Henry County. Understanding that number changes every day with individuals successfully completing supervision as well as individuals coming on to supervision. But as of today, we have 840 individuals. I want that to resonate with you. I know a lot of you in the room, you're here because you're looking for individuals to be employed. I want to put a rubber stamp on those 840. We'll do what we can to support them, to make them ready to be employable with you if you choose to work alongside of us. Although Henry County wasn't previously one of our reentry sites, it neighbored one of our sites, which was Clayton County. And we saw where we bled a lot over into Henry County. So the card that I gave you is our senior community coordinator that's responsible for the Clayton Judicial Circuit and will be working hands-on in Henry County. Just to give you a little bit of information about what she's done in a short period of time since we started conversation, we currently have 6 direct employers already in Henry County. Won't share who they are, but we do have 6. I will brag about one partner that we have, and that's with one of the staffing companies in the Surge. What we've seen from that partnership, and we work with them throughout the state in several other areas, but what we saw from them in Clayton was they was willing, they saw the need, they actually come to our office once a month. They provide interviews while they're there, we complete application and assessments while they're there, individuals who are there leave a job placement, very many of them going to work within that same week, if not the next week. I'm not going to say very much more than that because I know Ms. Sneed is going to cover that in her part of the presentation around successful partnerships, but we've seen a lot of mileage from that one-stop shop. If you have the individual there and you catch them while they're there, if you can go ahead and take care of everything that's needed, it's a win-win for everyone involved. So, can't talk about all the good things without at least touching on some of the barriers. So a few barriers that we've seen to employment, of course, is legislation. Those things that we cannot control or change, as you know. But some of the state laws and local policies can impact or support employment. There has been extensive work done around ban the box. I don't know how many of you all are familiar with ban the box, but applicants that are required to check the box if they've been, could have been any of us. You know, I don't take that lightly. As he mentioned, having worked in state government for 28 years on the juvenile side and the adult side, I could have been that person at any time. That's why I have the passion to work with the population that we serve, because I want to make a difference and I really truly feel like everyone needs a second chance. That rolls right into stigma. And I appreciate how Commissioner Nell led into about take certain individuals out of your mind, because that's not what we're talking about. Stigma is very real. Previously incarcerated individuals face societal stigma that impacts their successful reentry return every day into their communities. We're tasked with trying to remove some of that stigma. How do we do that? We get out and we try and educate. We try and share success stories. We ask individuals that we're working with, tell your story. You can best tell the benefit of the work that you've received from us, as well as the opportunity that you've received from individuals such as yourself. It takes everyone being open, and I appreciate that lead in to be open. and I ask that you remain open even after you leave today. Because research has shown the stable employment supports traditional values, pro-social attitudes and behaviors, as well as positive self-image, which aids in not only the successful reintegration back in the community, but it helps them to remain successful while in the community, even once supervision has been removed. We talked a lot about what we need to do to wrap a person as they transition out. What's most important is how do we wrap and support that person once supervision is removed. So in order to do that, we got to do everything we can on the front end. We got to do everything we can in our check-in. Because we know as long as we keep that individual employed in stable housing, they're going to be productive. So what's the win-win solution? How can an employer have skilled workers without risk and skilled workers land a job in spite of their background? That's the key question. That's why you're here today. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to Operations Manager Renee Sneed to join me at the podium and deliver the rest of the presentation. Renee comes with an extensive background. I'm not going to share her background and let her tell her story in her own way, but I am honored to work alongside of her as a part of my team. I couldn't do the work that we do without her. As I mentioned, I have 30 employees, but you know how you have about 5 key people that you count on and you rely on. Renee is my right hand on the west side of the state, and I have another ops manager, Mary, on the east side of the state. That's my right and my left. I could not do the work without the 2 of them, but more importantly, without my team. So Renee.
I think what she was trying to say is that she works me to death.
That's recorded.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. As Michael and Michelle have said, it is definitely an honor to just be a part of this gathering and to hopefully engage in some important conversation that's important to you as community members and business owners and stakeholders, but conversations that are really important to the families in the community, the ones who live here now and the generations who come after them. And so we take this work very seriously. I consider it holy work and sacred work, even though we're state employees. It's the opportunity to really be a part of transformation in people's lives. And so I'm happy to talk about why we do the work, the way that we do the work, and I will be transparent in the process and say we don't always get it right. We are very intentional, though, about what we do, and we reflect on it, and we are always wanting to do it better because we really believe that it matters. And so I was told that we have a lot of HR people and hiring managers, and so some of this will be familiar to you. It will be helpful to us if there are things that are not working for you, because this is kind of part of our spiel. I like to go around and I talk about federal bonding, and we might talk about work tax credits, and we are thinking that this is working for everybody, but if it's not, if there are ideas that you have, then we are definitely open to talking about it and doing what we can do to share that information with our colleagues in other agencies. I came to the state after working for a nonprofit, and I believe I came in having certain ideas about state government and how it ran and what agencies were like and what state employees were like, and I was so wrong about most of that. I have found, and it might be because I work for the best agency in the state, I don't know.
Amen.
That works on the deck.
And that works for me. Our agency tends to be really nimble and flexible in a lot of ways, and so when it comes to how we do supervision and how we engage with people, it gives us a lot more opportunities and options when we are developing partnerships. A couple of the benefits. Are you all already familiar with federal bonding and the tax credits? Okay, all right. Some are and some aren't. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the federal bonding program. This program is actually administered by the U.S. Department of Labor, and in Georgia, of course, by the Georgia Department of Labor. And it is an incentive program so that employers will hire people who are at risk, harder to place, and that would include people who are justice involved, people who may not have a long work history. It includes veterans and a lot of different groups, and it provides a fidelity bond that protects the employer against loss of money and loss of property. There is no cost to the employer, and there is no cost to the job applicant. It will cover employers for stealing, for theft, for forgery, larceny, and embezzlement. It applies to employees who are actually getting federal taxes automatically deducted from their paychecks. It will include employees who are full-time, part-time, and it includes temporary workers. So it will not include self-employed persons who do not have taxes automatically deducted. You do have to register with the Department of Labor, and you cannot have defaulted on a previous bond. So a person comes in, they want to find a job, they register, and the Department of Labor will give them a letter, it's a pre-qualification letter. Once they find employment, then that employer works with the Department of Labor so that they are covered in case something happens. I had a meeting with one of the employees from the Department of Labor probably a couple of weeks ago, and I was told that this is a very employer-friendly type of program. Don't think of it as something that you're going to have a stack of paperwork to fill out. There's no paperwork. They are very responsive in answering your questions and getting this done very quickly. If there is an instance where you're not able to contact someone, or you don't know who exactly to contact, feel free to reach out to us, and we are happy to help to make those connections. Okay, so that's one thing, the federal bonding program. The other thing that we offer as a state is work opportunity tax credits. Groups that qualify for this tax credit include veterans, SSI recipients, vocational rehab referrals, people who have received SNAP benefits, TANF benefits, and again, long-term unemployed recipients, and of course, people who are justice involved and who have been under supervision or are currently under supervision. But beyond the financial incentives, one of the things that I think really works is having strong, intentional partnerships with employers. And we've done a lot of research on this, and we have really tried to develop models that work. Because at the end of the day, right, we can talk about federal bonding, we can talk about tax credits, and we could probably send a lot of people, 10 people to come and interview, another 20. We could send another 30. But at the end of the day, you want somebody who is going to come, who wants to work, they're going to work well, they're going to be productive, and they're going to stay for a while, right? And I've had this conversation with people who hire individuals who have been justice involved. I've had a conversation with people who have, because of their industry, they're not able to hire people who have a criminal history, and they have a lot of the same issues. So it's not just because you have a criminal history. Just sometimes when you're working with someone who is entry level, who maybe they don't have a long working history, they're unskilled, you're going to have some issues with retention. And so one of the things that we are diligently working on is how to really tackle the issue of retention. Some of our fantastic partners have been Georgia Pacific, and we said we would, trying to make sure I'm not in trouble by mentioning specific companies. Georgia Pacific, they're a partner. Coca-Cola has been a good partner for us in certain spots in the state. And it's all because we have hiring managers who are willing to work with us. Goodwill, of course, they have been phenomenal in helping to train people and getting them ready for employment. And so surge staffing, Michelle has mentioned that, Fresh Express. There are two different ways that we do this. The first way I talked about, we can just send people, right? Just send people. I need 20 people to hire. There's another model that really we're excited about. And I'm going to start at the bottom with 440 Trucking. They are a partner of ours. Their CEO is justice involved, spent some time in the prison system, and came home, could not find a job, so he started a trucking company. Had no trucking experience, but someone mentored him. And through that mentorship, he learned the business of trucking, and now he hires people to drive trucks for him. But he also does a whole lot more. He does soft skills training, employment services, mentorship services, advocacy, housing. He has a support group that meets, I think, weekly. He does a lot of work. But he is able to do direct hiring himself, and when he cannot hire, he reaches out to partners and makes sure that any individual who is working with him is able to find a job. Every employer cannot do that, right? Right? Cannot do that. We're in the business to do whatever it is we do, right? We're not necessarily in the business to be a social service agency. Which is why I like the second model, which is Transition Accountability Program for Horsemen Rehabilitation Services. This is a project that I am extremely proud of. It's operating in Clayton County. We call it the TAP program. And our agency has partnered with a reentry organization. They're a nonprofit, and they provide those types of services. They do direct services, job skill training, employment coaching, one-on-one coaching. They do group coaching. The executive director himself will go with someone. They're trying to, one guy was trying to get an apartment, his first apartment. The executive director went with him because he had to have an interview, right? Those are things that employers can't do, but you can partner with someone who will do those things. And so the goal is not just to find employment, not just to do the recruitment, because we do a lot of that, right? We have job fairs across the state. We invite in direct employers, we invite in staffing companies. We did it before the pandemic. We did it in the middle of the pandemic. We've done in-person during the pandemic. We started doing virtual. We have, as Michelle said, employers who will come on site at a DCS office. It is a joy to see community coordinators pitching in and helping people to fill out those applications. CSOs, our community supervision officers, pitching in sometimes to help with those applications and help to guide the traffic. It's a wonderful thing, and that's what this programming is about. It's something that generally employers are not able to do themselves. They don't always have the time or the energy, right, to really work on establishing those partnerships, but we do that for you. And the other piece of this that I had to learn, and I did not realize, we make a lot of assumptions about law enforcement, right? Make a lot of assumptions about how they engage with people who are under supervision. And I've been able, through the programming, to see a lot more about that teaches me something about the dynamics of those relationships. We were getting ready to do a graduation, and we were doing it virtual in the middle of the pandemic. We had 2 officers who are in the Clayton County Circuit who decided, oh, I'm interested in this. I want to be a part of what you're doing. And they started helping with some of the coaching and mentoring, but they had time. They're still doing their supervision work, but they wanted to do more. And we had several people who made it through the program. We get to the graduation, and it's virtual. And both of those officers joined the graduation. And one of the officers, her son or her child was in the emergency room, and she joined from the emergency room. It meant that much to her. And not only that, I talked with the community coordinator and asked her, well, why do you think the guys have been so successful? Is it because of the coaches? She's like, yeah, that's good. Is it because they have the access to the one-on-one thing? She said, yeah, that's good as well. Is it because you're checking in with them? Yeah, that's great. And she said, but you know what they get really excited about? They get excited about the officers paying attention and telling them that they did a good job. Who knew? Who knew? And so as we are continuing to build this out, what I have learned is to just, first of all, not take anything for granted, not take anybody for granted, and just be open. Be open. People in this agency, I can only speak for my agency, have huge hearts. They have huge hearts, and they are committed to the success of every single individual that we serve. We've had 58 people so far to go through this program. And we find that they do better when they are in the program for longer periods of time. So one of the things that we're trying to do is increase our capacity. If you have an employer that's interested, we would love to have conversations about trying to partner with you and with this program to provide that extra support. Because you get the support of the community, support of the agency as well. And so to have that nonprofit partner as well as the support community supervision officers can provide, it gives us a better chance of someone being successful and being successful for the long haul. And so the other story I want to talk about a bit is my own employment experience, which has been really interesting. My background is really legal. I spent a few years practicing law, and as Michael said, sometimes things happen, right? And you never know where you will end up and never know where you might land. Unfortunately, I at some point landed in the middle of a situation where I was involved with the criminal justice system myself. And my whole life completely crashed. And I lost absolutely everything except my mind. And I'm still recovering from that 20 years later. The system doesn't always evolve with us. And so we've got these static practices. We have these static laws and rules and regulations. It's hard to bend them. It's hard to move them. And we're trying to say we're not that thing anymore, and we're somewhere else, and that law is still back there. And so we try to navigate based on a system that wasn't set up for our transformation, right? Wasn't set up to support our transformation. And so I did my time. I came home. I was not ready to work. And sometimes we think that society is afraid of the people who are coming out, but we're really afraid of you all too, right? We are. Like, what are you going to think what are you gonna think about me? How are you gonna treat me? How are you gonna receive me? Are you gonna want to give me a job? And I could not deal with that. So I'm so fortunate that I didn't have to deal with it for a while. I mean, how often do you come out of prison and you're in a transitional center and you're at the transitional center applying to go to school at Emory, right? Because you need a break. Because you need a break and you're not ready to deal with people yet. And those 3 years at Emory were a gift, gave me time to begin to heal, gave me time to reflect and think about this time around, how am I going to do things? And my first opportunity to apply for a job, I walk into this nonprofit, my fresh new master's degree in my hand, right? And my resume is polished. My interview is polished. And in the middle of the interview, I break out in tears. I've already, almost finished the process and I'm in tears and the executive director is interviewing me. He's like, oh my goodness, what did I say? What's wrong? And so I tell him this story and he said, oh, you know what? I was looking at the resume and I was wondering why you wanted this job. Because it was part-time. It paid peanuts, really, to be honest. And no benefits, a few hours a week. He's like, oh, now I see why you want this job. Okay, and so I really believed in the work. It was a public policy job and I was really interested in legislation. I have to tell you, I had an interview with the executive director. Then I had an interview with the program manager. I didn't have a job. I lived in Gwinnett County. This job is in Atlanta. Then I had to come back for an interview with all of the other program managers. And then I had to come back again for an interview with somebody who worked in budget or development or something. And then I had to come back again for an interview with the board of directors. And then I had to go back again for the 6th time for another interview. I don't know, with the executive director's kid or something. I don't know. For a part-time job that could not sustain me, could not sustain my kids. And I asked him about that later, and he said to me, when you told me that, I just looked at you differently. Yeah. But fast forward, 2 or 3 years later, I was still there. They had doubled my salary. I was full-time. And I learned so much from that same executive director. And I didn't even know any better. I didn't know enough to be humiliated or feel some kind of way about it because I had spent 4 years in a system that humiliates you. So that was my normal. And so when we talk about employment and opportunities, you vet our people, but we vet you as well. We want to make sure people have a real chance, that they are going to be in an environment and in a workplace that supports them. So I will tell people in a heartbeat, if you don't want to hire them, please don't. Please don't. Don't come because things are really tough for you and you've got high turnover and you're struggling. But if you had your rather, you get some, that's fine. That's no judgment whatsoever. People do well in employment when they are supported. I stayed in my job because I developed a relationship with my manager. I developed a relationship with my coworkers and my colleagues. Fast forward, 9 years later, I'm working for the state of Georgia. They can't get rid of me. I'm not going anywhere. Because I've developed a relationship with my manager and with my colleagues, and I feel good about the work that I do. But I have to be honest, it's really difficult, even with all of the support that I have, all of the education that I have, and I only have a tiny bit of mental health issues that I have to manage in the middle of all of it, and it's still very difficult because 20 years later, the laws are still stacked against me. Still, 20 years later, I have to ask myself, can I be in this place? Will they accept me? 20 years later, there are industries I will never work in. There are licenses that I will never have 20 years later, but I can't change it by myself. But as we develop these partners and people get past the stigma and begin to see person to person, that goes a long way in impacting what your neighbors think, what your church members think, what your pastors think, your network, and then it gets to what the legislators think, and then we can make change and really, really create an environment where people can flourish and survive. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Renee, as always. And I'll tell you, I can't come here in good conscience and ask you to do something we're not willing to do. So we put our money where our mouth is. And I would go to the mat for Renee. She doesn't have to worry about not going anywhere because we're not going to let her. She's that type of individual. I would give her the keys to my house. I would give her my wallet because I know Renee. I know Renee. So thank you. You're very welcome.